Hello, my name is Blake Hickerson. I'm the Turf General Manager of Sullivan's Landscaping and Maintenance, and this is the Lewes Crossing Spring Turf Talk. So I just wanted to give this presentation to you so that you were aware of what is in the lawn healthcare program that's offered by your HOA, and also what additional services that we offer to kind of fill in some of the holes that the HOA program does not cover. So what services are offered by your HOA? Well, it's really a basic, a weed and feed program is what I would call it, and it is designed for lawn maintenance. You have 5 steps that will occur throughout the year, and that's going to include spring pre-emergent and fertilizer treatments, which a pre-emergent herbicide is to prevent crabgrass from germinating in your lawn. It's also going to have broadleaf weed control at regular intervals throughout the year. And then there'll be a heavier fall fertilization, which is really to encourage increased root mass. So while your HOA program covers quite a bit, there are a few holes that are left there. And I would say in particular, I would be aware of summer turf disease. This can be a big issue in this part of Delaware. So what happens is that you will get, and we'll go over this a little bit more in the additional slides, but what happens is that you'll get fungal disease in your lawn around the time between June and July when it's humid and hot. And so we offer preventative fungicide applications, which would control disease before it's present. We also offer one-time post-emergent fungicide applications as needed or as requested. We do applications of limestone, whether it be dolomitic or calcitic, which is to maintain or to raise your soil pH, which that mostly has to do with nutrient absorption by the grass. We also offer, we don't just do lawns, we offer tree and shrub applications, which are to control both insect and fungal pests. We offer aeration and overseeding, so to add some new grass to your lawn, as well as to reduce soil compaction. And something new that we're doing now this year is compost top dressing, which would be a way to add organic material to your lawn, which is something that is really lacking in newer developments where you have very little organic material in the soil and very poor soils in general. Take a moment, please, and look over this slide, which has prices for additional services in Lewes Crossing. So these are all standard for every resident in the community. Standard pricing on aeration seeding, standard pricing on the holistic program, which would be the fungicide applications that I mentioned a moment ago, as well as the tree and shrub applications that you can get to protect your ornamental plants. And so these include turf square footages up to 9,000 square feet, which that should cover everybody in the development. But if you did have a concern about that, just give us a call and we can give you a quote. So back to the subject of lawn disease, which, like I said, if there was one thing that I would be concerned about going into the summertime, that this would be it. So cool season grasses are most vulnerable to stress under warmer than normal conditions, and especially when you have either excessive rain or irrigation, drought events on the other end of the spectrum. And even overcast skies, so a lack of sun for a long period of time. That'll all impact your lawn's ability to fight back against disease. There are really a lot of types of fungal disease that are present in this part of Delaware, but I'm going to go over 2 in the following slides just to give you an idea of what lawn fungal disease looks like. And that way, that say you start to see some of these problems in your lawn, you can go ahead and give us a call. This is the first disease that I want to cover, which is brown patch. And you can see on the left what that's doing in your lawn. So you're going to get a lot of irregularly shaped spots. And eventually these will kind of, if you just let this go, they'll kind of coalesce together and you'll get large dead areas in your lawn. And on your right is a close-up of what the grass blades look like when they have brown patch. And you can see these kind of irregularly shaped lesions or spots that appear on the blades. So just as an example of another lawn disease, this is gray leaf spot, and you can see on the left the type of discoloration that you get from this. So it's not nearly as obvious as the brown patch in the previous slide, but you can see from the picture on the right that there are similar lesions that develop, and that this is something that will happen when it's been both warm and humid for a sustained period of time. Another issue that is really bad in new developments and new construction across this area is soil compaction. So when your development is built, most of the existing topsoil that's there is removed by the builder and then is sold at a premium to landscape companies or to others. And what they do is they replace that with fill, and then between the fill and the subsoils, they move all of that around in order to make the grade right at your lawn, at your house. And so what happens is that between the fact that you have these really low organic matter subsoils and the fact that they put all this construction fill there, which is basically sand and rocks, you get a soil that's a really poor medium for plants to grow in. And then when you add to that commercial lawn mowing service that's going to run, a heavy lawnmower over the lawn once a week, you get soil that's been packed down pretty tight. And so what it'll lead to is shallow roots of your grass. With shallow roots is a big problem because when it gets really hot or when it gets cold, the grass is not going to be able to have its roots down in that deeper kind of temperature protected zone, and you're going to have a lot of stress in the grass. So say right now in the winter, if your lawn is yellow, like it's gone completely dormant, that's usually a sign that you have compacted soil. And another thing is that you'll tend to lose something like 10% of your total turf every year just to natural causes. And that could be from it being so hot, or if it's so cold, or if you get a lawn disease. And you really need to replace that grass fairly often. The University of Delaware Cooperative Extension that we have here, they recommend that you get an aeration seeding service once a year. I wouldn't necessarily say that you have to do it that often, but I would recommend that you aerate and seed fairly often. And it's good to do those two things together, because when we aerate, we're actually pulling up soil cores out of the ground, and then that's not only allowing water and nutrients and air to cycle down into the soil and to allow the roots to go deeper, but it's also bringing up soil to the surface that will provide a good medium for the germination of the new seeds. So this is a slide that shows our seed label, which is 90% turf type tall fescue and about 10% double time perennial ryegrass. So turf type tall fescue is by far the most common turf grass in this region, and it's a cool season bunching grass, but that has a high heat tolerance. So even though it's susceptible to a lot of lawn disease, which pretty much every cool season grass is in this climate, it has a better tolerance to it than like your Kentucky bluegrass or your perennial ryegrass generally would. The 10% ryegrass that's in there, that's not really meant to be a permanent ground cover. It's more so that it will germinate. Ryegrass germinates very, very quickly, and that it will provide some ground cover to slow down erosion during the time that the tall fescue is germinating. So I had mentioned earlier that we are offering a new service this year, which is fall compost top dressing. And so I had a conversation with John Emerson, who is the turfgrass specialist up to University of Delaware. And I asked him, what's one thing that you would like to see lawn care companies do that you don't see enough? And his answer was compost top dressing. That, like I mentioned, that the soils, especially across newer developed areas, tend to be very, very poor. And that the only way to really get a better quality soil without tearing up your entire lawn and without adding a whole bunch of new topsoil would be to top dress with compost. So we have machines. It's a compost top dresser. It basically will spread a fine layer, like about a 1/4 inch of compost across your lawn. Ideally, we would do this at the same time that we aerate and overseed, because we're punching those holes in the ground. That will allow the compost to get down into the root zone quicker. But let me just read you this quote from John Emerson, and this is from a paper that he wrote about the importance of compost top dressing. Poor soil quality is especially common in residential housing developments due to cutting, filling, and grading activities associated with development. In fact, it is common for topsoils to be removed and soil structure to be compromised during the construction process, resulting in a poor growing medium that is layered, compacted, and contains very little organic matter. Heavily disturbed soils pose a threat to turfgrass health and stand sustainability. Adding compost can go a long way to improving poor soil conditions and improving turf stand quality and hardiness. So in conjunction with that quote from John Emerson, I just wanted to go over something that we're a part of that we think is a big deal, which is the Livable Belongs program. And this is really administered by the University of Delaware and the DNLA, which is the Delaware Nursery Landscape Association. And what it is that it's a program that says that basically we're going above and beyond in order to protect our environment and in order to make sure that nutrients don't end up in our waterways. So we've joined this program this year, and it's been a long road of about 2 or 3 years where we were changing our turf program in order to be a part of this. And on the following slides, I'll show you some of the reasons why that we've done that. So this slide is a map, and what I really just wanted to show you is what happens to water that falls, whether it be through rain or through an irrigation event on your lawn, like where it ultimately ends up. And so to kind of give you an idea of why we're concerned about nutrients in the water. So if you can see the red circle there, that's the general location of your neighborhood of Lewes Crossing. And the blue arrows kind of show you the path that water takes as it drains away from Lewes Crossing. So first, after leaving your lawn, it's going to travel down to Gosley Creek. It's going to go through there to Love Creek, into the Rehoboth Bay, and then ultimately out to the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, and the real issue here with the following slide and with the path of nutrients is that nutrient runoff, and in particular when we talk about nutrients and runoff, we're worried about nitrogen and phosphorus. So what this leads to is algae blooms in our rivers, ponds, and bays. So algae is always in the water, but when you add a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, that is creating the perfect conditions for algae. So the algae likes that a lot. They eat up the nitrogen, phosphorus, and there becomes an overpopulation or an overabundance of algae. And what happens is that initially the first problem is that algae bloom, or that overabundance of algae, it'll deprive the submerged aquatic vegetation of light. So there's already vegetation that's growing in our waterways, that's natural, that's good, and this is a home for fish, this is a home for crabs. When no light is able to penetrate the surface of the water because of the increased amount of algae, that's going to lead to the death of those underwater plants. The second thing that'll happen is that as the algae eventually dies itself and goes to decompose, it's gonna take oxygen out of the water through the use of oxygen in the decomposition process of the algae. So now you have water where the plants that naturally live within the water have died because of lack of sunlight, but also you've taken all the oxygen out, and so this creates like a dead zone where fish and where aquatic wildlife are not able to live. And so in order to protect our bodies of water here in Sussex County that we care so much about, such as the Rehoboth Bay, we limit the amount of nitrogen that we apply in a year. We have certain timings for our applications that are very important so that we're not putting too much nutrients down when they cannot be used by the plants. And this is something that you'll notice with our program versus others, is that we have sort of a different way of doing things in terms of the nitrogen timing and the amounts. So with that, I just want to thank everyone that tuned in. I know this was a relatively short presentation, in particular without the questions from you. Sometime, if you ever have any additional questions, feel free to call us at 302-335-5317, or go ahead and email us at info@sullivanslandscaping.com. And you can find out more if you have any questions about the Livable Lawns program or about the applications. Please just go ahead and reach out to us. And thank you for everyone who listened.